Hi guys, what's up? It's Will back once again for another fight card prediction. I'm here for UFC Kansas City, Max Holloway versus Arnold Allen. I'm going to give you my kind of quick picks for this card because, like I say, it's Friday. I usually get out far earlier than this, but there's been a whole heap of stuff going on this week with the kids and everything else. And I've just found no time whatsoever to really look into the card kind of until the last couple of days or so. So I'm just going to give you my kind of quick thoughts on some of the matchups, and there's some matchups that I'm not going to really go too much in depth to because there's some fights I just don't really want to dig into as much these days. But yeah, coming off another successful week betting wise last week, which is always nice. I'm on a nice little run this year. I think it's like I want to say 17 events I've bet on and won 13 and 4 I think is the record, so that's pretty solid. I'll happily keep more of that going for the rest of the year if possible. And like I say, there is definitely spots in this card that I like. I've maybe missed the best of the lines, but there's definitely some spots that I like. There's Cage Warriors tomorrow. There's PFL tonight. So there is some spots I'm not sure whether I should be digging into a little bit, but there is a couple of little spots I like. I might even go over the Cage Warrior spots that I like and the PFL too. But let's get into just having a quick look at UFC Kansas City. Great main event. Looking forward to this. Jocelyn Edwards against Lucy Pudilova. I'm kind of leaning on the Pudilova side, but I'm really banking that off the fact that hopefully she can mix in takedowns. If she can mix in takedowns, then I think she's got a far easier path to victory. If not, it's going to be one of these dogged affairs on the feet where both girls will land a lot, that they've not got a hell of a lot of technique. I think Edwards has got the reach on her. Let me just read that. 70. It's only a couple of inches, but not nothing too much. Both girls coming off wins recently. Yanan Wu, elbows there. You seen that? Ji Young Kim, a split, which was very, very close from Mona Pasquale. So this is two very low caliber wins, but wins nonetheless. I'm going to lean on the Pudilova side. I just think I'm kind of basing that off. She could potentially get more takedowns in the fight, and maybe I don't know how much kind of top time she's going to get, but as a pick, I'll pick Lucy Pudilova. Gaston Bolaños against Aaron Phillips. This to me, I don't know, it kind of baffles me why the UFC signed this dude. 6-3 record. He fought in Bellator. I don't overly rate him all too highly at all. I think he's a fish off his back. Decent striker though against Aaron Phillips, which I think it's his second stint in the UFC, and the guy just does not fight. You see this here, Devontae Sewell, that's a name I haven't seen in a while. Jack Shore was nearly 3 years ago. So, like I say, both guys are more stand-up here. If I'm Aaron Phillips, I'm going in for takedowns. I just don't see it there. This to me looks like I kind of get this guy a win, but it's hard to be super confident. He's like minus 200. I would never be betting a guy in that kind of spot there, but I'll pick Bolaños as a pick in the fight there. This is one I'm a little bit interested in, and the line's kind of shortening a little bit. We've got Bruno Brazil against Denise Gomez. Watched the recent fights. Bruno's coming off that beautiful head kick knockout of Manic Man there, which there was a couple of squally spots there where she was kind of pushed against the cage. I thought she showed some decent takedown defense from what we've previously seen in the LFA. Had a couple of sweeps on the feet. She's very low volume, but she's got really nice deep kicks, long kicks. She can go up top. She can vary her kicking style and land that. Her hands, I don't think are all that great, but her kicks are very dangerous. Gomez, coming off that El Luma look with me 6 months ago, there was some spots in that fight that I didn't like. I mean, I liked her aggressiveness, really pushing the pace, try to get the fight against the cage, get takedowns. And she had some opportunistic moments in that fight, but ultimately I seen spots where Loma was on top, was raining down with ground and pound. I just don't think consistently through the space of 15-minute fight, she's going to have those spots where she's going to be dominant for minutes upon end. And I think the more fights that go by with Bruno Brazil, I think that she can show up her takedown defense. And on her feet, she is very kind of methodical, very technical with her striking. She might not land much, but she might land some big moments in the fight. So ultimately, I'm going to go with Bruno Brazil in that one there. Lando Venata against Daniel Zellhuber. Now, this is a really tough fight to me because I think this guy's getting a lot of I've seen a lot of hate kind of online for this guy saying he's a bum. He shouldn't be in the UFC, all on this performance here, which it's pretty clear that that kid did not pull the trigger, because if you watch some of these fights, he's pulling off big submissions, big knockouts, and he looked like a deer in the headlights in that fight there. Now he's coming in against Lando Venata, who's moving back up to 155 from 145, who's your prototypical look at this loss wins, loss win, losses on loss again. So Diakese took the L there. Diakese, when he shows up, is a top fighter when he wants to be. Medeiros, a guy I always loved to watch fight, just that Hawaiian warrior spirit. Bobby Green, really good fighter. Mike Grundy got a W there. Mike was never really kind of the highest UFC caliber, and then lost to Charles Jourdain there. I'm not off the Zellhuber train just yet. I think that there is still a lot from this kid. I'm not writing him off. Venata, he must be in his early 30s now, is he? 31, so he's still quite young. And he might kind of hit a second maybe win within his career where he might move on, win a couple of fights, but he's one of those inconsistent fighters that I'm not overly high on, so I'm going to stick with Zellhuber here, but this could be a spot for Venata to come out here and really kind of build off that loss that Ogden, maybe he shunts the confidence of someone like a Zellhuber with that loss, because like I said, there wasn't many people picking Ogden in that fight card. I know that for a fact, but I'll stick with him. I think he'll win via decision here. What we got? Pierre Rodriguez against Jillian Robertson. Now, I was looking forward to seeing Jillian on the scales because I thought she's dropping down. Like, where is she losing this 10 pounds from, coming from flyweight down to strawweight? And to be honest, when I seen her weigh in earlier this afternoon, I actually thought she looked very good in the scales. Didn't look like she was overly too depleted. It looked like she took all the right steps with the weight cut prior to the big cut at the end. So, and we know what she's like. I think she was pretty much undersized at 125, but she's dogged. She comes forward, looks to get the fight to the ground, where she clearly has an advantage over a lot of girls. And she will have that. She'll probably end up being the bigger girl when she's down in this division here. So 5'5", got the same inch reach there. But like I said, she's had some good wins in her UFC career. But she's also, like, I would expect her to kind of lose these fights that I'm going across there. Your Santos, your Mavericks, your JJ Aldrich, I think is a wee bit an underrated fighter. And then you've got Pedro Rodriguez, 9-0, coming off that win over Sam Hughes and Kay Hansen. And this was a good win, I think, over Machado, who was someone I thought might make the UFC this year, but she lost her belt in Invicta, so it might be a little bit of a harder trek to get there this year. This is a tough one for me. I think I'm on the Jillian Robertson side. I think the experience, I think the ground game, if she can get into some of her spots, I think she could be a little bit nasty on top. But we've seen Pierre Rodriguez get some takedowns, be kind of filthy on top. But I'm going to stick with Jillian Robertson here. I think she can get a stoppage maybe late on. But it'll be interesting to see late on what's that going to look like, what's her gas tank going to look like, because I don't think she's overly had the best gas tank kind of throughout the years. But I'll pick Jillian Robertson to win that one there. Where are we? Ed Herman against Zach Cummins. Just read up about Zach Cummins. I was like, where's he been? And supposedly had like a slipped discs in his back, and he's been bedridden. When was the last time we seen him fight? 2020, coming on 3 years. So this, and he's already talking about retirement this week. And then you've got him against Ed Herman, who I think they were saying his first fight in the UFC was like 2008 or something like that. So the guy's been around for the longest time, but slow as molasses. Doesn't have much of a gas tank, but I think early on he is maybe live to catch Zach Cummins. As a pickle goes Zach Cummins, I want nothing to do with that fight whatsoever. Now this one, geez, this is a great fight. Brandon Royval against Matthias Nicola, I think will be a kind of eliminator for maybe a UFC title shot. But saying that, Manil Cap has just been matched up with Davison Figueiredo. So if Manel Cap comes in there, gets a big win, he could really put himself at the front of the shop window there and looking for that next title shot. But this is a great fight. I'm picking Matthias Nicola. I'm a big fan of Matthias Nicola. I have been for a long time. Came into the UFC, got cut, went in the regionals, came back, and I think he looks as good as he ever did now. As a fighter, I think he's technically far more sound than what Brendan Royval is across many facets, from his striking, from his countering style, from his shot selection to his overall jiu-jitsu. But Royval is just he's raw dog. He is in your face, at you all the time. And like I say, I think this line was, I want to say it was -170 earlier in the week. I was contemplating betting Nicola at that number, but this number here, I just think is a little high for what could potentially be a very, very close run fight. But for me, the more skilled fighter is Matthias Nicola, and I really like him in many spots in this fight, as long as he doesn't put himself in a precarious position where Royval is coming at him and is taking the kind of the assertiveness in the fight. Raw Dog's coming off 2 wins, Matt Schnell, Rogerio Bontorin in the last year. Not bad wins whatsoever, with losses to Pantoja, who could very well be the next flyweight champion. He's matched up with Moreno. And then, like I say, he took that L to Moreno. So the two guys in that fight, and a win over Kai Kara France there. When you've got Matthias here, win over Tim Elliott. You got that split over Manel Cap. Sorry about that, guys. Just Mrs. coughing away there, being rather rude. But Manel Cap, that was a very close run thing. I thought he did enough there. And then win over Dvorak, top 15 guy. Matt Schnell, top 15 guy. Got the finish there. So I just think as all around is a consistent fight. I think if these guys want to fight 10 times, I think 8 of the 10, 7.5, 8, 10 times of that time, well, 7 or 8 of that time, I think you get someone like Matthias Nicola winning. I just think he's got all the skills really to win this fight in different facets. I think he could catch Royval coming in. I think he could play jiu-jitsu with him on the ground, and just his overall class of jiu-jitsu over this kind of explosiveness as of Royval kind of comes to the front there. But I don't knock anybody for taking a shot in this guy, because he'll fight for your money. But for me, Matthias Nicola, late round three or a decision. But I didn't mind the under 2.5 when the line was out earlier in the week, but it's kind of changed since then. TJ Brown, Bill Algeo. I like Bill Algeo. I've never overly been super high on TJ Brown. And this guy, I think I underestimate him a little bit. He's a very tough, well put together fighter. Doesn't really stand out in any areas, but he's a very tough, just a very tough matchup for a lot of guys, I think. And like I say, he's lost his close fight to Fila there, where he gave as much as he got in that fight, made it rather close. And Ramos there with his wins over Herbert Burns, Joanderson Brito, that's a great win to have. And Spike Carlisle, I think, is a decent kind of explosive opponent that you have to be careful with. TJ Brown, I think he's got some skills there, but I just don't think he's got the highest caliber of IQ. And I think he could be hurt with a shot. I think he can put himself in bad positions sometimes. But he will fight for your money. I don't like this betting line, like -200. I think when I look at Bill Algeo, it's like I don't think he stands out to me as a -200 fighter. So, and I know there's some people thinking about taking the shot on TJ Brown here. Not for me. Algeo's going to be the pick. I think that he just is the more kind of classy fighter over 15 minutes and wins a decision in that one there. Rafa Garcia against Clay Guida. I would love to pick Clay Guida. But how old is this dude? 41, 42? 41 years old. And he's coming into fight number 60, 61. God damn, he's been in the UFC for so many years. Plus 210. I know he's plus 200 over here in the UK. That's a big number for someone like Clay Guida. You're not going to get Garcia that's going to come out here and wrestle someone like a Clay Guida. If he does, then I think he'd be making a grave mistake. So he has to come out here and throw some heavies and look to really pin it on Clay Guida. And Clay Guida's never the easiest guy to track down with your strikes and to really hurt him with those strikes. I would love a Clay Guida win personally, but I just see Garcia kind of doing more over the 15 minutes. But I kind of think that maybe the way that Clay Guida fights, he makes these judges make the fights a lot closer than probably what they should be. You think that one fighter maybe has won, and then he comes out there and just with his movement, the amount of strikes that he throws, the amount of strikes that he doesn't really land, but he's throwing. I kind of feel like Guida could nip this one here, but I don't know why. The gut's telling me Rafa Garcia, so I'm going to stick with that one, but praying for a Clay Guida win because who doesn't really like Clay Guida? Pedro Munoz against Chris Gutierrez. Earlier on in the week, I was definitely on this side, Pedro Munoz, and then the more as the weeks kind of went on, I've kind of leaned over to the Gutierrez side, but I don't like this number whatsoever. Again, with like Bill Algeo, when I look at this guy, I think he just doesn't jump out as a guy that really covers this number and makes it look kind of easy. But he is starting to really come up within the division. He's really starting to establish himself, a really underrated guy. He's starting to get those fights in the top 15, top 10. And this is a big one here because, like I say, he's coming off 4 dubs. Andre Ewell, Felipe Colares, Batgirl Dana, and then you've got Frankie Edgar with that knee that was vicious there. That's a big, big win to have, even though Frankie Edgar is he's retired now, he's on his way out. Where you look at Munoz, the only losses this guy takes is to really top fighters. Frankie Edgar, Jose Aldo, Dominic Cruz, poked in the eye by Sean O'Malley. But I would be more inclined to pick Pedro Munoz if this guy really came out here and grappled, because I do think he's a fantastic grappler, but I also think he loves to just throw down. He likes to throw leg kicks. He likes to really make it nasty. And I think that might be just playing in the wheelhouse of El Guapo in this one. The only bet I would really have in this fight, if you're not taking the dog, is I would take Gutierrez via decision. I don't think that he stops Munoz, but I do think him via decision is the most likely outcome. Plus 115, I think I saw that earlier on today. That would be this kind of side I would take if I wasn't betting Munoz. I just think he does enough over the 15 minutes, but it wouldn't surprise me if this ends up being a close split decision type fight. But I'll take Gutierrez for the win there. Ion Cutelaba against Tanner Boza. Boza I thought looked great with his cut down to 205. The deficiency that Tanner Boza has, that if you put him on his back, he's hard to really get back to his feet. He doesn't really have the explosive energy to really get off his back and get it back onto the mats and strike down, which he likes to do. But then you've got Cutelaba, it's the curious case of this guy. Sometimes this win here, I thought he looked amazing in that fight. Then the following 3 fights, I thought he looked absolutely garbage and took 3 stoppage losses. So it's all dependent on me if Ion Cutelaba can come out here initially and get takedowns. If he can consistently get takedowns, then I would like him to kind of win the fight through that, but it's hard to really trust him. So I'm going to take Tanner Boza to win the decision in this one here. Not confident, but yeah, I'll take Boza for the win. But I would honestly rather see a Cutelaba finish a win, just because, I mean, he loses this one, he's probably not in the UFC anymore. So Tanner Boza for the win there. Not super confident though. Dustin Jacoby against Azamat Murzakanov. I like Jacoby, man. I do. I think this guy is super explosive, has big power in his punches. We've seen that in that knockout of Taflon and Chukwi. Like I say, undefeated fighting out in New Jersey. And he's, like I say, he's got a couple of stoppage wins inside the UFC, as well as that Sheffield one who fights in the PFL regular. But this guy, I really like watching Dustin Jacoby fight. I don't know what it is about him, but I've just I really like the way that he fights. Really good, solid striking, puts it together very well. I think this could, in some spots, look kind of close. in some rounds, but I just see Jacoby doing it a little bit more, and I'm looking to parlay this kind of fight up. Starts round 2. I've seen it like minus 200 over here in the UK, which I thought I think these guys could be a little bit low, bit of a slow start to the first round, moves into the second round. So I'm kind of looking maybe parlaying starts round 2 up with someone in this card here, but Jacoby is going to be the pick in that one there. Edson Barboza against Billy Quarantillo. Apologise about the message. Like, she's about to get a kind of slap to the side of the bus with the way she's barking away there. But Edson Barboza against Billy Quarantillo. I'm going to go with Edson Barboza. I'm going to take a kind of sack up, roll the dice, and take a shot on Edson Barboza. But I know what I'm kind of getting myself into with this pick. I mean, Edson has been around for so long. He's fought the who's who, had some tough losses. Didn't like the fact he was dropping to 145 so late in his career, but that kind of reeks a kind of desperation doing that. And I don't think it's been the greatest success for him down there. I thought he won that fight, by the way. Wins over Americani, Shane Burgos. That was that scary knockout there, like where Burgos just all of a sudden went down, and then he took 2 L's to Giga and to Bryce Mitchell there, which is a little bit. He got dropped by Bryce Mitchell, which he might have been maybe thinking about the wrestling a little bit too much of him shooting, and he just got caught. That happens sometimes. And Billy Quarantillo, I mean, 137, 134. So like I've heard people say this week, the younger guy. It's like it's not a hell of a lot younger. And this guy's fought the elite of the elites in lightweight and some guys at 145 too. But this guy is so good to watch. Quarantillo, he brings it every time, and this is where this fight could be spectacular earlier on. Now, how I see the fight going is I think this guy in that first round is gonna. I'd be if he wins that first round, which I think he is. I think that he puts a lot of damage on someone like a Billy Quarantillo, where he could hurt him with leg kicks, hurt him with body kicks, really slow Quarantillo down. But then in that second and third round, this is where Edson's kind of composure is going to come into play. Can he stay in the fight, land his strikes, and not get hit with that power shots that Billy, or the relentless abundance of strikes coming from Billy that's really going to take him out of the fight? Because if he can stay light on his feet, land those kicks, not get hit with any fight-altering shots, I think that he's got a good chance of winning 2 rounds. But I know what I'm going to get myself into by betting a guy like Edson Barboza. And I am going to bet Edson Barboza this week. Plus 150. I like that number. And I kind of like the matchup. But I know what I'm getting myself into by betting this guy, because he could get melted at any part of that fight. In the first round too. But any time, especially in rounds 2 and 3, if Billy's not compromised, he could come out there and get him. But I just think that Barboza's got a shot at stopping this guy. I think he's got a shot at winning 2 rounds. And if he can stay conscious in round number 3 and stay competitive in it, I think he can win a decision. So, like I say, kind of plugging my nose, rolling the dice, going to roll with Edson Barboza one more time. I do think this is a bit of a kind of step down. And this is a bit of a step up for Quarantillo, considering who he's faced from your Benitez to your Hernandez. He's against Edson Barboza here. So I'm going to take Edson via decision, but I think he could severely compromise Billy Quarantillo. But like I've said, I can see Billy maybe late on in this fight putting it on Edson. But 2 guys I love watching fight. Billy Quarantillo's he's a guy that I like listening to in interviews. I think he's a pretty smart dude. But like I say, as a pick, I'm going to go Edson Barboza, but wish all the best to both guys in that one there. Main event of the night, Max Blessed Holloway against Almighty Arnold Allen. Been a massive fan of this guy for as long as I can remember. One of the nicest dudes outside of the cage as well. And then you've got Max Holloway, who's just been, I think it was 4-0. He came into the UFC, he's now 23-7. And this guy's resume of the people that he's fought is through the roof. He is one of the GOATs in the featherweight division. He's faced everyone from your McGregors to your Porres to your Aldos to your Volkanovskis, Yair Rodriguez. I could go on and on and on. Your Charles Oliveira, your Anthony Pettis. He has beat them all. Charles Oliveira, I think he did fight at one point. So he's fought so many of the elite guys. And then I couldn't believe that this guy made his UFC debut in 2015. I'm like, where did that time go? It only felt like a little time ago I was watching him in Cage Warriors, and he's 10-0 in the UFC, worked his way up the division. He was one of those guys that he kind of went under the radar a little bit, wouldn't fight as much, so you kind of forgot about him a little bit. But the last few years, he's really took off. Sodiq Yusuff is always going to be a great win in your record. Dan Hooker, he came out there kind of completely different to what he did before and just threw heavies. Took a shot, got wobbled a little bit by Dan Hooker there, but ultimately got the win. And then he beat Calvin Kattar there, beat him in the first round, and then there was obviously the injury to Calvin. I'd like to see that fight move on to the later parts and see if we can get a little bit more data on Arnold Allen. But to me, right now, I think it's obviously his hardest fight that he's had. And to me, I'm just like, I think this line now, he's minus 175 over here in the UK. I think that betting line should be a lot higher on the Holloway side. Minus 250, minus 275. And I'm like, why is that not getting bet higher than this? Maybe the late steam will come in on Max Holloway. Like I say, this guy really only loses. He's lost to Volkanovski. I thought that second fight he won, in my opinion, when I watched that back. Beat Calvin Kattar in one of the most unbelievable performances you'll ever see. This was a great fight here. Now, and then obviously he lost to get outclassed completely by Volk, but there's not much of an age difference between them. A couple of years, considering how long this guy's been in the UFC. But I think this guy's time's coming where he's going to catch a shot. I don't think he's ever been dropped. He's never been stopped. Due strikes, he's been stopped via submission. But I think his time's coming. I mean, 31 for the amount of time that the guy's been in the UFC, the amount of fights that he's had. I do think that time is coming where that Hawaiian chin is going to take a dip, and he is going to take a dip up to the floor and potentially take a loss. But I just don't see it being Arnold Allen. I see Arnie having an opportunity in the first 10 minutes of this fight. After that, and even in that 10 minutes of that fight, he could potentially have lost those 2 rounds due to the output. So I think that Arnold has to come out here and land something of some significance in the first 2 rounds of this fight. If he doesn't, then I think that he could just get Max Holloway, and that's just get output to death, pretty much. Now, I think Arnold will always be kind of dangerous because I think he's a pretty good athlete, hits hard, a little bit unpredictable because, like I say, that Hooker fight kind of came out of nowhere where he came out just a berserker and went after Dan Hooker. Now, could I see him doing that against Max Holloway? Maybe. But and could he maybe put Max Holloway down? I think he maybe could. But to me, I think minus 175, and it was lower. There was a minus 150 I seen way back last week. Minus 163 it was for a little bit, and I just missed out. But minus 175, it seems to me like an absolute smash spot. And we might not have too many of them left with Holloway. And like I say, there's Volkanovski and there's Holloway in that division, and he beats when he's a favorite like this. He does very, very well to Max Holloway. Now, I love Arnold Allen. Great story. Very underrated. I thought personally he should have been fighting for the interim belt when it was Burgos and Yair Rodriguez. Made no sense. Burgos, Emmett, I should have said. I thought that he should have been in that spot there. A little bit interested because Arnold Allen's not at TriStar anymore. I think he'll probably still have Varas Sahabi in his corner, but he's out of Team Renegade, which is an emerging gym. It's the home of the welterweight champion. We've seen fighters come through there, fighters train a bit there. Ian Gary's went did a bit of work there. So, and it is an emerging gym with a lot of quality fighters here in the UK that go there. So I'm interested to see what changes he might make there. For me, it's Max Holloway. I think I'm going to lay down probably my biggest bet of the year on Max Holloway. I'm also probably going to play the decision rounds 4-5 in decision prop, which is like plus 130. So it's kind of go big or go home this weekend, I think, with Max Holloway. We might have not too many spots like this where I clearly think he should be favoured a little bit higher. But like I say, his time's coming where that chin is going to warp and he's going to get himself in trouble. But I just don't see it being Arnold Allen right now. But Arnie will stay very relevant in that division at 145 and win some fights. But Max Holloway is going to be my pick there. So, yeah, I'm going to go have a little look to... I think I'm going to go to the PFL. If you just bear with me a little bit here, guys, I'm going to go and bring up the PFL because there's a couple of odds I like tonight. And there's some Cage Warriors tomorrow. So if you can give me a little bit here, let me go back and go back in here. And like I say, we've got PFL on tonight. I'm just going to go into some of the spots that I like here. Where are we? I like this one as a parlay piece. I like Clay Collard against Yamato Nishikawa. Very young kid, lot of fights. But I just think I don't think he's ever really fought anybody like a Clay Collard. He's only 20 years old. 30 fights. Jeez, I didn't realize he was that young. But I like Clay Collard. I love his boxing. I love his overall kind of skill as a fighter. And I thought he's did all right since he's went to the PFL, personally. This is the big fight of the night. Olivier Aubin-Mercier against Shane Burgos in the lightweight division. You've got OEM coming off that big win last year where he won the whole thing. You got Shane Burgos, who I hear is making big money over in PFL, moving up to 155, which is obviously going to be far more beneficial to him with not having that extra 10 pounds of a weight cut. And I kind of like Burgos in this one here, but I missed the line. Now, there was an underdog line on where he was like plus 120 all the way down. I think he's like minus 125 in the UK now. If I could have got that plus 120, I would have felt far more confident, but I will be staying away from betting this one. I might bet, actually, I quite like the over because I don't see either guy really finishing each other. But like I say, OEM's been great since he went to the PFL. And like I say, he's been very, very active in the last year. When you look at 4 fights, Nathan Schultz, Manfio, Alex Martinez, Stevie Ray, he's been fairly decent fighters where you've got Burgos coming off not the greatest fights against Billy Quarantillo and Jourdain, where I thought he had opportunities to maybe stop those fights and didn't get it done. But I like Shane Burgos as a pick, but I'm not going to debate him in that spot there. Where else are we? Always rooting for Stevie Ray here. If you don't know, his daughter's like trying to raise money for his daughter to get like this treatment, which has gotten worse over the last couple of years, and they've raised a lot of money. And just as a Scottish MMA fan, I love to see Stevie win, but I think his time really betting, fighting at the super high level of this, I think against someone like Schulte is probably close to being over, but hope he wins. I just don't think he will. Manfio, it was a guy I was very much contemplating looking at betting a couple of days ago when he was plus money. He is still plus 100, but I think I'm just going to pass on that one. I think that he can win tonight. Sarabusi, I think this is a guy that you can parlay up. I'm pretty confident that he gets this here. And I've been an admirer of Al-Salawi for a long time. He was someone that I mentioned on one of my prospect videos to kind of keep an eye on. I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But I just don't think he showed a great... I don't think he's looked overly great in the PFL. Got starched in that one there, which was a little bit of a shock to me. But he's a guy, like I say, I've had an eye on for a while. This is a great win against a guy who is just signed to the UFC. You will see him in Paris later on this year. Abduragimov, the Lazy King. Just a great fight. So that's a great win to have there. So I like Sarabusi. So I'm kind of looking at maybe Sarabusi, Clay Collard, parlay for tonight. I've got an hour to get the pick in and get the bet in. So I just need to wait and see where I'm going to go with that one. Where is Cage Warriors? Is back this other way. Sorry, guys. I'm going to just bring up Cage Warriors because there is some spots that I like there. This is a great fight, a great main event against Hardwick and Lias. But some of the spots I like here and some of the guys I think you should keep an eye on in this one. Contemplating betting this guy, Gavin Hughes against Chris Bungard. Very familiar with Chris because, like I say, he's from Glasgow. Been on the scene for a long time. These two have fought before. Gavin Hughes, I believe, had his first round submission win a way back a long time ago. Or was it a win that he had? Yeah, it was one first round win that he had over Chris Bungard. But he's 35, coming off a couple of losses there to Scatese, Yves Landau, where he's got stopped a couple of times. I like him there. He's an underdog as well. So that's a spot I might bet. I'm interested to see this guy, Chris Price, 4-0. I haven't seen much of him, but I think that he could end up being good. This guy I don't really rate all that highly. This is the guy in the whole entire card for me that I've got my eye on, and there's a few of them in this one. Luke Riley, 5-0, undefeated, fighting out of Next Generation Liverpool. That's the camp that Molly and Paddy come from. 23 years old, fighting out of, like I say, Liverpool. This guy, I mean, he's fought a couple of decent fighters earlier on. Like Jack Eglin's the guy that I rate pretty highly, even though his record's not as great. He's took a couple of L's. Last time out, he looked great in Cage Warriors, but he's got some fast flowing hands, great strikes, and like you see, 5 finishes here. Callum Parker is a guy that I only really find out about this week, but he will come out looking to grapple, I believe. 2-0. I think you have to keep an eye on Luke Riley. I think that he is one of the shining stars of Cage Warriors, and will probably very soon, maybe within the next year or two, get an opportunity in the Contender Series where I can see him, if he's not got the belt, he will make his way into the UFC very, very shortly. Adam Cullen's another guy that you should kind of keep an eye on. A really solid fighter, 6-0 Next Gen as well. They've got a great crop of fighters coming out of that gym there. Like I say, not fought the highest caliber of opposition, but got wins all the same. I think that he continues the streak here and gets the win. Nathan Fletcher's coming in super short notice for Rhys McEwen, a Scottish guy who caught staph infection and was kind of ruled out this week. So this is a short notice fight, but Nathan Fletcher is very, very good. 7-1, again, Next Gen out of Liverpool. So they've got a great crop of young fighters coming through. Lost his only fight to Don Wooden when that was for the belt, but beat some good guys, Martignoni, Bouland, and Giordano was a good win as well over there in Rome, I believe. So, like I say, some really good youngsters coming out of that camp. Looking forward to seeing that, and he's got a tough fight against Dean Duas, I think is how you pronounce it. And this one here, like I say, Jan Lias is actually a guy that I've seen in Cage Warriors, seen in Brave. All around, I think he's a very solid fighter where you've got someone like Hardwick, 11-1. I thought he would have been in the UFC. I thought he would have got a spot in that UFC pay-per-view in London this year. But I think if you win this one, I think it's hard to really deny him to maybe fight in that July London card if they have it. I love George Hardwick's bodywork. A really, really good striker. Can maybe takes too many punches for my liking as well, gets bloodied up a little bit. But once he starts attacking that body and starts cooking you, you're in a hell of a lot of trouble. And these are solid wins. Lucas Capera, like I say, Bungard that he beat in there, Kyle Driscoll, I thought was a solid win. You go back there, Dean Truman, who had a Cage Warriors belt at one point. But I do think he's got a tough fight there. Also, James Power. Don't know how I missed this guy. He's another guy I think you should be keeping an eye on. 4-0. I don't know how old he is. I don't reckon he's overly old. Doesn't really say. But he's the guy that you should be keeping an eye on as well. This is a really good win over Adam Shelley. So there is definitely some guys that I like there. But like I said, I went on for 40 minutes. I was going to give him a quick picks and just a couple of little bits there. I'll be back next week. I'll be out a lot sooner than I would have been for this week. But like I say, family is just kind of getting in the way. I had to look after that. All the very, very best. Take care. And I will see you all soon. Enjoy the fights this weekend because there is plenty of them.